Good afternoon and welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange, Leadership Tools and Strategies. So thrilled to have you in. Happy to have you joining us here in mid-May. Thrilled to have a wonderful guest today for our episode, Mark Fernandez, Chief Leadership Officer of the Luck Companies. As always, I'm Todd Greer, host of the Nonprofit Exchange and the Executive Director of CenterVision Leadership Foundation. We're so thrilled to have you in. We're just nearing the corner as the June issue of Nonprofit Performance Magazine will be launching. That issue is going to focus on some really important topics in the nonprofit world. One chief issue that we face is how do we understand giving moving forward into the next age of the nonprofit. So I want to encourage you, if you have an opportunity, take a look. You can see it at centervisionleadership.org/magazine. As always, want to invite you in to join us when we go onto our Twitter chat. That's hashtag Nonprofit Chat. We do that every Thursday night at 9 p.m. We'll continue the conversation from today going forward on Thursday night at 9 as we think about values-based leadership. So without further ado, Mark Fernandez, so thrilled to have you in. How are you doing today?
Great, Todd. How are you?
I'm doing well. Marks, thank you so much for joining us. I know you are the Chief Leadership Officer at the Luck Companies, but you're more than just that. Now, tell us, if you would, for those that don't know you well, what else is going on in your world that you're doing here on behalf of the Luck Companies?
It's a good question, Todd. I like to think of the role. Obviously, it's an interesting title. Not a lot. I think we've found one other Chief Leadership Officer in the U.S., and he's in Austin, Texas. But what it does, Todd, is obviously shed light on the level of importance that we put on leadership. And we practice a particular model that we've been developing called values-based leadership. And in the context of doing good, making a difference in the lives of others, and doing well, personal and business performance, we believe values-based leadership is how and why we do both. So we've been working on this model for 6 years. And my job as Chief Leadership Officer is really twofold. One is to continue to evolve the model. So we're actually on Values-Based Leadership 3.0 now.
Oh, wow.
And working with, some different universities and subject matter experts on more of the positivity and well-being side of leadership. We call it investing in self. And so the continued work on that model is really one of my top 3 to 5 initiatives. And then taking that model, Todd, and implementing it inside our company walls through a team of leadership development partners, through the HR team, and through we have about 150, 160 formal big L leaders, we say, in the company, pushing it through them down into the other 750 leaders we have in the company. Because as you know, we say leadership is a choice, right? Not a title or position. So working inside the house, right, activating the model. And then our mission, as you know, is to take that model and ignite human potential through values-based leadership, positively impact lives around the world. And do things like your show here and take the opportunity when it's made available to us to share the story out in the world. And we've stood up we're in the process of standing up our own nonprofit to do that in a more efficient, effective manner.
That's fantastic. Mark, one of the things that you hit on here is you talk about values, and you really have a great focus on leadership. So kudos to you and the organization for having that formal role of Chief Leadership Officer. We're seeing more C-level, intriguing and different roles, the CMO, the CFO, obviously the COO, but not enough organizations have the CLO. So thank you for having that, and please share our thank you with Charlie there. We're really appreciative of that model. You talk about values and leadership, and a lot of times what we hear is when people talk about values, they tend to appreciate the importance of values. What they tend to struggle with is they think it's squishy. Values are squishy, and how do I really implement those in my organization? How did it take place there at Luck as you guys began to implement the VBL program there?
Yeah. Well, I can remember day one, Todd, because I was here when the idea and the ideology was introduced to us, and it sounded 100% squishy to me. As a self-proclaimed recovering jerk, and I was one of the company presidents at the time, all I could think about was, who has time for this? I got a business to run, right? So you think about, right, my own journey over the last 12 years and really kind of understanding what this is all about. And when I think about how do you really link it together, probably one of the most compelling sentences that I remember reading was in the book Primal Leadership. It's a Goldman of emotional intelligence fame, Boyatzis, McKee wrote the book, and in the book there's a line that says, what we value most deeply as human beings will move us most powerfully in work and in life. And what we understand about that now, Todd, is that every one of us has a set of values, right?
Yeah.
And it's our deepest held beliefs about what is right and good, and then they serve as the guideposts for our life, how we filter the world and how we want to show up in the world. It's also the best version of us. So the extent that we can, as we would say, live, work, and lead aligned to those values, right, that is better going to position us to find our own voice, be a really, really great leader, and then help other people find theirs. And there's a lot of great science behind that. So what we know and understand today, and this is some new stuff, we believe that in the future of work, Todd, that leadership is an inside-out job. It's about who you are first and then what you know. Because that who you are, what you value, what you believe in, that will really dictate and move you most powerfully in work and life. And when all we've done the last 12 years is institutionalize and operationalize a set of values and then put them into a leadership model and push them out into the organization bits at a time.
Mark, that's such a unique process that you guys have gone through, and it's very intentional. And I've seen that my own self as I've spent time with you guys up there. I remember the first time that I walked into the headquarters, I remember seeing the values on the wall, and I have to tell you, it's not every day that I see a value humility on the halls of a major organization, major corporation like your own. And I remember seeing that and thinking, well, gosh, these values are emblazoned on the wall. Are they emblazoned in the lives of the people? And I think that's one of the things that has kept me very in tune with what's happening there at Luck, is the fact that it's not just plaques on a wall. It's certainly in the life of the leadership. It's in the lifeblood of the organization. It's part of the culture there.
Absolutely.
And now one of the things that you guys use, and I thought this was a really interesting model, you've got on the values-based leader website, you use a target model, okay? And your target has 3 tiers, and one of them is purpose, one of them is behavior, and one of them is values. Mark, would you just kind of briefly walk us through what that means and how that functions in the life of an individual?
Sure, Todd. So, and obviously there's a lot more complexity to that model relative to a human being. That's what we understand today.
Yeah.
But in its simplest form, the middle of the circle is values, right? That's what's inside of us, okay? And what we basically do as human beings, so many people, Todd, have taken Myers-Briggs and DISCs and Insights, and that's personality style. And that's really a snapshot of how you show up and behave every day. And the math that we like to think about is the extent to which you can align your behaviors with your values, right, to deliver on your purpose, right, your reason for being, that's what we called a life lived meaningfully well, a life lived aligned. So it's aligning your values and your behaviors to an end that helps you live your purpose, lives lived meaningfully well. Our definition of values-based leadership, another way to look at it, living, working, and leading in alignment with your core values, principles, beliefs, and purpose to in turn ignite the extraordinary potential in those around you. So that diagram, values, behaviors, purpose, it's about getting those three things aligned.
That's an important thing. We oftentimes, we see the struggle with alignment in organizations. We tend to come at these things, especially in this 501c3 world or this nonprofit social benefit world. We have a great passion for a cause, but there's a lot of times that our leadership is not aligned to that. There's a lot of times that our culture is not aligned to that. You've probably heard stories, and I know we all have, of the organization where somebody says, gosh, man, there's such a fantastic organization from the outside, but they talk to that staff member on the inside and they say, man, it's just a mess internally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all see those types of things. And I think that's one of the things that's really exciting to me. I love the term igniter. And I think that the usage that you guys have of igniting human potential. So if you're working with an individual, Mark, or if you're working with an organization and you're helping them unlock their human potential, where do you really begin? I mean, this spade work of uncovering values, would that be your key place to start?
Yeah, you're not surprised, Todd. You get this stuff so well. You're all around it. You know, where we would start if we were helping an organization, because a lot of times they'll say, hey, can you help us with our leaders and our leadership? Well, the first question we would ask is, to what end, right? Yeah. Because leadership is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. And so to what end means let's start with making sure you articulate a mission or a purpose, right? Number one, why does your company exist? What difference does it want to make in the world? Mission. Vision, what's the clear and compelling picture of where you want to be in 5 years, right? Values, right? What are the 4 to 6 values and corresponding behaviors that if they become your culture, right, will ensure that you achieve your vision and live your mission, right, on a daily basis. And then you also look down at strategy, goal, and objective, how you make money, and you do that also. And the last thing we would throw in are leadership competencies. What are the knowledge, skills, and abilities of your leaders, right, to ensure the mission and the margin get met? We call that, Todd, step one, writing the code or the constitution of the company.
Yeah.
Now, once we know that, right, then it becomes, you know, for all intents and purposes, match.com. Now what you have to do is assess the leaders in place and say, how much of their being, how much of their soul, how much of what they value, believe in, and how they naturally show up every day lines up with the code and the soul of the company. Because all the research tells us the best way to change the culture is by the leaders going first and modeling the way. Well, what you described is so true. A company will say, oh, this is who we are, and this is how we want to do business, and this is who we want to be, but the leaders will be showing up 180 degrees from that. And the employees go, I don't get it. So you write that company code, and then you address those leaders in place and see how well they personally line up with that code. Coach the gap, get them modeling the way, and then start working your way down in the organization. Those values for us, Todd, show up on everybody's performance reviews. We have several different recognition and reward programs for people that walk the talk, as we would say. So not only are they on the wall, but they're how you get rewarded, compensated, promoted, and evaluated.
Yeah. Yeah. I've long said, Mark, and I don't know if even this is something that you guys have talked about it, but it's certainly there. We value what we celebrate. We value what we celebrate. You know, I look in so many organizations, they talk about these values, and yet if we don't celebrate, I know the Center for Positive Organizations at the University of Michigan would call it positive deviance. If we don't celebrate positive deviance, then how does that begin to permeate the organization? So that's a great point. Let me ask you a question here, because this is always one of those touching points. We've probably all heard the adage about getting the right people on the bus. First, get the right people on the bus. Mark, you were talking about, as you guys go in and you utilize the values-based leader model with an organization, you talk about kind of writing that code and starting there, starting in that leadership realm, and that's that capital L leadership realm. But ultimately, if we want a culture to be a fit, if we want culture to exist and thrive, doesn't it ultimately come with us engaging that onboarding of people who get that value as well?
So ask that one more time, Todd. Sorry, you were breaking up. So if we're trying to not leave culture to chance, right? Because culture will happen, right?
Yeah, if we're going to have it exist in our organization, it's going to take bringing the right people in, right?
There you go. Yeah, so there you go, right? And the leaders have to go first. So it's a mixed emotion that we have around this, Todd, but we've and these are all extraordinary people, but we've separated with 11 officers over the last 12 years. And within the first couple years of adopting our values, there was probably 4 or so that we agreed, extraordinary people, loved them to death, but the way we would describe it, this was not their dance floor. Meaning what they valued and believed in was different than what we value and believe in as an organization. And Bud, this is where the work gets hard. They can't stay. Okay, and so all the way back to your point, where is this flowery? And the answer is absolutely not, especially when the values are more than just words on a wall. Okay, and that's the only time I get on my soapbox out on stage around the world to say, this is actually really hard work. Be careful what you sign up for. Because not everyone is going to be, right, the value and believe in the same thing that the organization does. And especially at the leader level, it is critical.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I was thinking, Mark, about the stories that I've heard of these startups as they grow beyond that founding team, and they begin to onboard new people. They talk about, well, we just don't seem like the same kind of company that we used to be. And I think ultimately this is what we're talking about, right? It's we're so busy onboarding people that we're not getting the values piece right.
There you go, Todd. And that's why we started this whole thing in the first place. We grew too fast. Yeah. So we were 300. We got up to 300 people by 1995. Decided to grow the company. 5-6 years later, we were 1,300 people, but we had no processes in place. We had not codified the values. And exactly what you're saying, we hired a bunch of extraordinary people, but not all of them, their soul and our soul didn't match. And it got pretty dysfunctional. Yeah. And someone like me came into the company and said, write down what you want to change about the company. And all the officers wrote a bunch of stuff down. The next question he asked was, how many of you wrote down yourself? And obviously the answer was none of us. And that's when we realized, to get this right, the leaders had to go first. We didn't know to what end, though, and that was the first time we ever documented our values. We said, now we know values VBL 1.0, what type of leaders we wanted to be. And so it was exactly like a startup.
It's such an interesting thing, and I think a lot of times people who are in a situation where the funding is not there or the growth isn't there, they're quick to say, oh gosh, I wish I had that problem. And I think there's some point at which they say, well, yeah, I wish we grew so fast that we didn't have that issue. And yet what you're dealing with is a very real issue. You know, when we talk about organizations that grow and have sustained growth, we're talking about organizations that get this fit. They get that value orientation, the value congruence between the individual and the organization. So that's great.
Yeah. I think, Todd, a lot of, I don't know what the percentage is, but I think a lot of organizations do implode because they lose their sense of self. They forget why they started the whole thing in the first place. They forget what they stood for. And then all of a sudden the money gets tight. They start chasing the money, and they turn around someday and they don't recognize who they are anymore.
Mark, I'm going to use that as a jumping off point because I think what you said there is really interesting. We, a lot of times in the nonprofit world, we talk about mission creep. Okay, we talk about chasing the money in an organization where you know, we start out with a cause and a purpose, and then what happens is we start looking around and we see, oh, there's a grant over there that it would cause us to make this slight step out, and then there's a donor over here who says he'll give $1 million if we do X, Y, and Z, and before we know it, where are we?
Lost my way. Where are we?
Yeah.
You got it, Todd.
So here we are. I mean, you've worked in a number of different environments. You've worked with organizations of all different shapes and sizes and different types. If a nonprofit leader is sitting here and Mark, they're saying, gosh, you know, I recognize that this is a gap in our organization, and I recognize that the gap starts with me. What would you encourage them to do, or how can they get in touch with the Values-Based Leader program and really begin to think about, as you put it, igniting human potential?
You know, step one, Todd, because the work is really hard. You know, whether it's on yourself, my own journey, right, recovering jerk, or the work that you're going to do in the organization, it's the hardest work you'll ever do. And I've been a company president, and I've launched businesses and rebranded and done all kinds of things. And this has been the most challenging thing that I've personally ever done. Yeah. So before you think about embarking on something like this, you really need to know what you're signing up for, because it's not, right, cotton candy and roses. Yeah. The second is, do you really buy? I love the Simon Sinek quote, so go the leaders, so go the culture, so go the culture, so go the company, profit or nonprofit. You know, do you really subscribe to the fact as a leader that it's not them, it's you? Yeah. Right? That the work has to start with you, and that the culture is going to become a shadow of the leaders. And so what work is it that you have to do and your top leaders have to do, and then the next level down have to do in your nonprofit or for-profit to move the bow of the boat in the direction that you want it to go, right? And then what is that direction? Leadership and culture to what end, like we described. And Todd, I believe, much like we reached out, we had someone work with us for 4 years when we first started our journey. And it was baby steps. I mean, we're way, way advanced now in the work that we're doing, and we're still learning every day, obviously. But from first realizing that the problem was us, the leaders, to beginning our work on selves, writing our values, sharing them with the company, right? And then letting the organization start to develop 1 or 2 processes. That was like 5 years worth of work, just that little bit right there. And there are, whether it's us, we do the work now with other companies, right, under the valuesbasedleader.com, and now the nonprofit called Inner Will. We do this type of work with organizations, but if folks reach out to you or me, we know a lot of other folks around the country that do similar work to help organizations take this journey. Yeah. But I think you need a witness. You need a third party.
Yeah. I want to touch on something you said, because this is a really interesting thing. I think a lot of times we get so excited about that next thing, whatever that next thing is, and we want to, and what I heard from you is there ain't no shortcut to this.
There ain't no shortcut. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
There is not a shortcut.
So you're talking about in really seeking a transformation. You're talking about a couple-year journey. Is that how I understand it?
It is, Todd. And what I think the good news is, years ago, when we used to think about changing a culture, you used to hear it takes 5 to 7 years. It takes 7 to 10 years. I believe with everything we know now and all the amazing research that's being done with, places like the Hay Group and Kouzes and Posner, that we can do it in 3 years-ish. At least start moving an organization toward a high-performing workforce. That the time is shorter. I don't think that it gets much shorter than that, though.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of work to do up front in step one to what end. Then you're going to spend another year really assessing the leaders that you have in place in the organization. By the 3rd year, you've probably moved some pieces and parts around and put some process in place, and you're going to really start seeing things.
Absolutely.
And then it never ends.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I think that's the other piece to this is even once you get it implemented, the process of maintaining and growing. Such a significant factor to this.
Yeah, forget growing, just maintaining. Human beings, we are really messy creatures, gloriously messy creatures. And we want to do what's called go home. So I want to go back to being a jerk today, still 12 years later. But I know that's not going to serve me well as a leader and a husband, as a friend. But my natural inclination, especially when my stress goes up and my awareness goes down, I want to go home. I want to go back to the core. And constantly working on that, that's why it's called a journey. It's not a destination.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think this is something that's very tangible for us as leaders in any organizational type is to really process through and think about. And I love where it starts with us. It starts with us as the leader to think about who we are, where we're at on this journey, and really, as you put it, codify that framework of what is it going to look like. This is significant information, Mark, and let me say thank you to you guys for going through this journey. I think anytime you go through a journey and you come out on the other side, there's something about being able to be the guide for somebody else's journey, and I appreciate that you guys are doing that. You're making this information accessible. And folks, if you're watching right now, obviously on the page that you're watching on, you'll be able to see some links to Mark and Mark's work. If you would like to get in and learn more about the values-based leader model, if you'd like to see about the Igniter, you have it as an app now, right, Mark?
We do, Todd. Yeah, we do. It's in the App Store, and it's also on the site.
Awesome. So this is information that the Luck companies, through their synthesis of this journey, have been able to make accessible to you as you think about this in your own journey. I know if you look for Mark's name, you're going to find him. He's going to be speaking in a lot of different places, and I believe you have a gig with Kouzes and Posner later on this year, right?
Yeah, so they have, and they're, speaking of them, Todd, a lot of folks ask, what books do you read?
Yeah.
And that's the book that we start all of our leaders with, is their seminal book, The Leadership Challenge. I think it's in its 5th edition, but that is, we call it our monthly program, and to get into the big L, the formal leadership around here, you have to go through that program. That book is so fundamentally strong. And their framework is one that's built on values, and then ultimately built on loving your associates, and it's really, really good. So we're speaking for the 2nd year at their forum in San Francisco. I believe it's in June, the Leadership Challenge Forum.
And that's a great place, folks, if you want not only to see Mark and to see what he's talking about here, but you'll be able to find a deeper and fuller conversation with more voices in and around this values and leader and leadership realm. So this is a great opportunity. Folks, you've got to check out Mark's work. You got to check out what they're doing. This is an authentic journey that this organization has been on. This isn't a group of people who are telling you to do something that's medicine that they couldn't take themselves. They dealt the hard thing first, and they're asking you to join them on this journey because it's tough and it's challenging, but ultimately you will come out and you will be amazed at the changes. Mark, again, always appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. There's so much that you've got going on that you are teaching, and thank you for being a pioneer in this values-based leader realm and for charting the course for us.
Well, and thank you for what you're doing, Todd. Obviously, the work of the nonprofit world is very important, if not the most important work that's going on out there right now. And we believe that leadership is the keys to the kingdom. And so what you all have going on is, I think, critically important. So thanks for providing a megaphone for us, and please continue to let us know how we can support you guys in your work, because it is really good work.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it very much. Folks, want to encourage you, check us out Thursday night on #nonprofit chat. That's 9 p.m. Thursday night. That's Thursday. That's the Eastern time zone. Please join us for that. We'll be talking more in depth about the values-based leader model. We'll be talking about how do we begin to take on these things as you, as our audience, as all of us join together and we ask the tough questions. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you being in. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.